I have mixed emotions about this whole mobile thing. AppNexus has spent the last few years really building a business in the desktop world. And so I thought, maybe single-handedly, we could convince everyone not to spend so much time on their phones. So I tried this out. Feel free. This is not a good idea, but you can do it. I started walking up to people on the street saying, please don't browse on your phone. Please don't browse on your phone. One guy grabbed his iPad. The police came. So it turns out that people don't like it when you touch their phones on the street. And they're going to browse on their phones regardless of what we do. So if this is going to be inevitable, I suppose it's time that we figure out how exactly this whole mobile advertising thing is actually going to work. So who better to teach us all about mobile advertising than Paul Palmieri and Brian Lesser? Hi, guys.
I think you're in the middle.
Oh, take your pick.
All right.
So, Paul, the CEO of Millennial, massive IPO last year, and I believe you're about to finish the biggest mobile acquisition of the year. How do you feel?
I feel great. I think one of the things that I was listening to Michael talk about inevitabilities. I think one of the things we've been convinced of for a very long time, and we're very excited about, is that I think a few years ago in the desktop space there was a lot of arrogance about, well, there's social we could invest in, there's video, and then there's mobile, and those three things are the same. And fundamentally, we do believe that the PC will be a sideshow over the long term. That really what it's about is solving for multiple screens, and specifically solving for mobile first, because the data that's associated with it, we believe will feed the whole digital landscape. And so, yeah, as we look towards the closure of the acquisition of JumpTap, we're very, very excited. One, because we've done this great partnership with you. We've launched the MMX. But JumpTap is one of the largest buyers of exchange-based mobile inventory. And so they have about 1.5 billion bids per day that they're doing out there. And so interestingly, we're going to have one of the largest, if not the largest, mobile exchange. And we will have under our roof a very experienced buyer. So we'll actually know what to offer all of you. And so, and we're doing it at a time that I think is just very exciting.
Yeah, it is. And Brian, this morning you announced Xaxis Mobile.
Yep.
Which I believe has some JumpTap components in it.
Yeah, not a coincidence that we launched it today, but
I don't have orange on my socks.
yeah.
Yes.
By the way, this is for you. Orange dots.
I didn't get the memo.
I'm honored. I'll send the memo earlier next time.
Okay.
So, I think pretty consistent with Paul's comments. Just as by way of background, Xaxis uses data and technology to help advertisers reach audiences across all channels. And we have 1,500 advertisers that depend on us to get them massive reach and measure the performance of campaigns. So we do that in display, video, social, and we have done mobile in the past. But we've always actually been, if I'm being honest, frustrated with mobile, because our advertisers don't pay us to spend money on mobile. And in fact, I think that's part of the problem with mobile, is that it's been invested in as a silo for performance advertisers that measure things like clicks. And it hasn't been easy for brand advertisers to understand mobile in relation to the other channels. So we launched Xaxis Mobile today because we've made a ton of progress on that. Working with companies like Millennial and JumpTap and AppNexus, we can now do a better job of identifying the user in mobile and across other digital channels. And we can raise the level of quality in terms of where mobile display is being served. And we can do a better job of serving formats that the user actually likes and appreciates and is relevant to them.
So one of my employees was asking me the other day, AppNexus is broadly a display-oriented company. I think well over 99% of our revenue this year will actually be from display. And she asked me, she said, well, what's so different about display than mobile? Not technically, because we spent the whole year figuring out the technical differences, but in terms of what you're actually offering to the agencies and marketers. And so I think what you're doing with Xaxis Mobile is really interesting, because it's not just about sort of ad tech, behind the scenes plumbing. It's about changing the experience potentially for the consumer and for the marketer.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe you could share sort of what you're doing there. And also, Paul, I think everyone here would love to understand more about what is mobile advertising as it exists today in 2013. So
yeah, so I'll give you an example. One of the components of Xaxis Mobile is a product called Xaxis Swipe. So a big problem in mobile display is the fat finger problem, where people are actually trying to get rid of the ad because it's not relevant. And instead of clicking on the little X, they actually click into an experience that is frustrating because they didn't want actually to go into that experience. So Xaxis Swipe is a format that we're introducing across our premium marketplace, whereby if somebody touches the mobile ad, nothing happens except another message will come up that says, swipe this to engage. So it gets rid of that fat finger problem. We think it's more consumer friendly because they're actually not going to go into this mobile advertising experience unless they actually mean it. And in the research we've done, it reduces that problem of fat finger by 25 to 30%. So we think that's a better experience for the user, which is, I think, part of the problem, up until now.
Also sounds like a price negotiation too.
yeah.
On your part, I think one of the things we've done is you have the little X, and actually the hotspot is bigger than the X. I think is something we have played with, and so.
And it's a click, right?
Definitely be interested.
That's a click.
What's that?
It's a click, right? You click the X, you get paid for a click?
No.
Oh.
No.
I always get confused about that.
Nice try though, Brian.
He's trying to make you more money.
We're selling cost per swipe now.
Got it.
That's great. That's really cool.
So my question is, we still have this metrics problem, which we'll talk about later. So Paul, from your perspective, looking at all the different ways that a brand marketer or really any marketer could engage with mobile, can you talk about what Millennial's offering beyond just sort of the standard banner ad for mobile?
Sure, and as a background, Millennial's standalone business, prior to the combined company with JumpTab, Millennial standalone business is about 60% brand, 40% performance. We do business with 85 of the Ad Age top 100 advertisers, and so our real, I think, expertise is in the brand side. And so for us, it's not just a banner, but it's rich media. So it's all kinds of activity that's happening in the banner. It's interstitials. It's video. For us, video is on a not on a pre-roll, but on an interstitial basis. And there's all kinds of things that you can do once you have the software development kit embedded in the apps like we do. So about 45,000 different apps. And so, what we've got is the ability to either show a banner or to show a rich media ad or to show a video ad in many of the instances. So it makes the inventory flexible. And at the same time, we're experts in mobile. And so when things change in the hardware, for example, on iOS, but not yet in Android. Like in the early days, it was the accelerometer, and we wanted to make ads where if you turned the screen, the ad would size correctly for that, or you could pour a Coca-Cola or something along those lines. As a rich media unit, we had one for Carnival Cruise Lines where you could swish the water with the boat and things. But the fact of the matter was, it wasn't really valuable to an advertiser to just have that on iOS, and so we waited so that our embedded software kits that go inside the apps all have a consistent rich media set of access points to the drivers that are in the OS, and whether that's, again, things that come from the OS or things that are being innovated by Qualcomm and the other chip manufacturers that we can then reach down and access on the device. Really interesting things. I'd say recently some of the more interesting things that are being used in the market are like the microphone, for example.
So when you work with the agencies to develop these, obviously there's a creative aspect to that. There's a measurement aspect to that. And that's a really cool experience to be able to, slosh water on your phone.
Yeah.
I've returned a couple doing that the more traditional way. They won't take them back, by the way. But I guess I'm curious. So as are you finding that the agencies are already thinking about how to build richer mobile experiences, or are you having to sort of suggest and push to get agencies to adopt these things?
I mean, I think a few years ago we were suggesting and pushing and building and teaching. I think today as we sit here today, it's pretty apparent that consumers have really flocked to mobile, that this behavior is not just additive to the PC, but in some cases, completely different uses, or if you talk to the weather company, completely cannibalistic of the PC experience. People don't look at weather on their PC anymore. They look at it on their mobile phone. I'm sure all of you in this room have had a similar experience there. And so, I think at this point, there's a lot of commitment from the agency community to really get after this and see what those experiences could be. Additionally, again, as we close this JumpTap acquisition, what I'll say is JumpTap has about 45 million cross-screen profiles where they have been able to dedupe a user using their unique identification technology and their own unique identifier to really understand, and match keys, of course, across other screens, to understand a single user, whether they're on a smartphone, their tablet, or their PC, and have had great success in this fourth quarter, really great success in terms of what that really means to advertisers. And again, the experience on mobile on a smartphone is different than the tablet experience, which is different than the PC experience. And I think agencies are really understanding that this is a place that they've got to play, and they've got to play not just as a check the box. A couple of years ago, it was an agency was going out to do a pitch, and they were saying, well, we should include something on mobile. And then, a year ago, they were saying, hey, we have to include something on mobile because if we don't, our competitor will, as they're pitching business. And today, it's we have to have the best stuff in mobile, or we're not going to win the business. And so I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah, now, Brian, you're running the largest trading desk in the world.
Don't call it a trading desk.
Well, what do you call it?
It's a programmatic media company. But
excuse me, the largest
I'll take
programmatic
largest
media company that's part of a trading organization and started as part of a holding company.
Yes.
We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for misbranding.
It's all right. It's okay.
It.
A lot of people make that mistake.
Okay, 1 second. Not a trading desk. We'll rehearse next time. I actually canceled a rehearsal. I was like, guys, we've done this 1,000 times. But see, this is why we rehearse. So you're inside a holding company.
Yeah.
We can agree on that.
We are.
Okay. So you work with the agencies.
Right now, it's the biggest in the world, although
it is the biggest.
That may change.
Okay, got my facts straight.
Yeah.
So you're inside the agency. So you have a preferred relationship, to actually go see perhaps how the sausage is being made and influence how the agencies are thinking about mobile.
Yeah.
So what's your experience? And also, how are they responding to that audience story powered by JumpTap?
Yeah, so I think slightly different to the way Paul describes it. From I think Millennial standpoint, it's mobile first. From our standpoint, it's audience first, at least as far as paid media goes. So we get a lot of agencies that come to us and ask for our expertise in advertising technology or data, and they say, what can I do in mobile? And I think it's actually the wrong question from a paid media standpoint. And the analogy is, we do quite a bit of business in online video. And we also get a lot of agencies saying, how can I convince my advertisers to take some of that television budget and shift it to online video? And that's precisely the wrong question. The question is, how do I get my advertisers to think about online video as an extension to what I'm doing in TV? And then it's our job as Xaxis, as the experts in technology and data, to give them metrics and targeting that make it easy for them to think about online video as just an extension of their television buys. So it's audience first, and it's audience across multiple screens, formats, channels. So you extend that to mobile, and I think what we've tried to encourage the agencies to do, at least from a paid media standpoint, is think about mobile as just another way of engaging the user. The average the average American spends 2.5 hours on their mobile device now, either their tablet or their phone. And so it's become significant that we be able to deliver messages to them. And now with the 50 million or so profiles that you're talking about from JumpTap, and we have a good partnership there, we can now measure those people on their mobile device as well as we measure them on Facebook or online video or connected television. And then we can actually help advertisers understand how should that experience be different in mobile than it is in video or display or anything else. And then how can we change the messaging? So sequence the messaging, make sure the messaging is consistent with whatever they've seen across other channels. So that's really where we're trying to focus the agencies from a paid media standpoint.
I liked a lot what you said about it's not about getting them to shift dollars, it's about convincing them this is an extension of the TV experience. And I'd say at least in my household, we're certainly a second screen. I can't watch TV without having something else open. And I think that if you look at I don't know about your 4-year-old, my 4-year-old consumes all media on an iPad.
Yep.
I don't think she knows what the TV does.
Right.
So I guess for me, it's an interesting point of this mobile video question. And Paul, you've obviously been doing this for quite a while. Do we see the future of video on mobile as the future of video?
I mean, I think video is going to be a huge opportunity on mobile. We're very focused on it, and so we think there's real money there. We think there's real interest from advertisers in getting their video production onto a mobile device as consumers are using it. We do think it's more of a tablet phenomenon as a mobile device than a smartphone phenomenon. And so, I think we look at that and we say, okay, that's somewhat tablet-led for us. And so we'll kind of see where it goes, but we think there's a good opportunity. We've done some things around two-screen where we're showing a synchronized campaign with a show that's happening or something along those lines. We did with Nat Geo had Killing Lincoln, and we had a tablet creative where the video that was available during the commercial breaks, if you were there, was different based on where they were in the show, and it was a little bit of bonus content and things along those lines. And so I think there is this synchronization that's happening. You're not alone. You're not the only one with a device as you're watching TV. I think it's pretty prevalent. But again, we see this behavior as tablet-led, not smartphone-led.
And that's actually an interesting question. I mean, today we talk a lot about desktop versus mobile. But I wonder, going forward, I mean, the desktop versus tablet question seems harder and harder to distinguish. Tablets with keyboards, are they PCs or are they tablets?
Well, I think there is a real compelling reason why when Steve Jobs first held up the iPad, he held it like this and not like this. It's fundamentally one of the things that I personally don't think Microsoft gets about mobile at all, is that it's not a tablet PC. The PC's over. The iPad is incredibly successful. The Samsung device is incredibly successful because it's a big iPod or a big iPhone, and is focused around iOS, which is a much more appropriate use. And so, I think while Microsoft continues to, look at their business and say we have to save our business by taking all these new form factors and forcing people to think that it's a tablet PC, it's wrong-headed, and it's clear, and it's, I think the numbers bear that out.
I'm very much looking for ESCO to come out in a little while. I'm going to tell him you said that.
There you
ESCO,
go.
it's going to be good. And also, I'm buying one of those things, so I'll tell you firsthand what I think.
Please.
But I do think, though, that it's an interesting question.
Office will work great for you.
Hey, that's great. As you know, that's all I do all day. Well, I want Outlook, okay? So the point is, though, for me that, if we think about this from an advertising perspective, I think you and I have talked about this before, that, if you could convince everyone in this audience to put something in their pocket that could show rotating advertisements within, say, 6 inches of their face all day long, that would be a pretty crazy thing to do to consumers. Like, could we really get you all to do this? Anybody here have an advertising device in your pocket right now that if I just say Twitter, you will all be like, oh my God, I got to check it, and put it in front of your face? That would be a pretty powerful consumer play, which I hope someone makes at some point. So it feels like that device really is, a powerful, powerful ad experience. And you can rotate it and slosh water and do all these things, or even swipe. So for me, this feels like the phone and the tablet really become very different experiences. But I'm new to mobile, so I'm curious what you think. I'm curious what you're hearing from the agency communities and from the marketers about how they see this. Is it digital and this happens to be mobile, or is it a different experience that we have to create for consumers as they consume horizontally versus out of their pocket?
Yeah, I think that the mobile, the iPhone and the iPad are actually converging. I guess, in my opinion, I think they're converging a little bit more. So you talked about how people don't watch TV anymore without something in their hands. And I think, generally speaking, people are probably agnostic as to whether that's their phone or their iPad. But we need to start thinking about how that experience with the mobile device can be consistent with whatever is happening, whatever else is happening. So as an example, in the Netherlands, we have a product called Xaxis Synced, which basically what we do is there's an application on the phone or the iPad that listens to what's going on the TV. And when it hears a television commercial of one of our advertisers, essentially we go into an exchange and in real time buy up every display ad that that user might be looking at on their iPhone or iPad. So now they have a consistent experience with what's happening on the TV with what's happening on their phone. And I think, from a experience standpoint, that's what surprises and delights users, not being on Twitter, for an example, and interacting with a television show that way. But if they're browsing, and they're watching TV, now they've got that consistent experience. And we can actually change the creative so that it's not precisely what they're watching on TV, but it's more of a call to action. And I think that sort of interaction is where we need to go from a paid media standpoint.
Interesting. Paul, what do you think?
Again, on this, I think this product that they're coming out with is really great. We're excited through JumpTap to be a supporter of it. I think synchronizing the creative is great in terms of timing, and I think making the creative unique based on the device, is where it absolutely has to go. All of that has to, though, be underpinned by the ability to identify a user without a cookie, which is the thing that I think companies in the mobile space, really undertook to build that technology very early. It's one of the things that we, rely a great deal on, and so I, totally agree.
So I promised a number of people in the audience that we'd open it up for questions. So I think we have some AppNexus runners with microphones. So if you have a question, raise your hand, stand up. You can try to do the dances that we saw earlier in your seat if you like. Helicoptering will get you a mic. So while you find your AppNexians there. Paul, I have a theory that at some point you're going to announce that Millennial is no longer a mobile company. When?
Well, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. But no, I don't think we'll ever make that announcement. Again, we believe that the key to digital, we think mobile is the real digital. We think that, advertising is advertising, and merchandising and sales is merchandising and sales. We believe the vast majority of what's been done on the PC internet is merchandising and sales. It is not a difficult math problem to, when somebody types in new cars, to show them ads for whatever they might need to fix their car. We don't think that's a big stretch. We think all of that is merchandising. And so, as we look at mobile as the first real opportunity for true advertising, and we think mobile is the real digital. And so I think what we'll talk about is being born mobile. I think what we'll talk about is mobile is the key to the profile across all devices. And I think we'll talk about us being cross-device. But I don't think we'll ever say we're not a mobile company anymore, because we believe mobile is the real digital.
Interesting. And Brian, your perspective, I assume, would be similar from a different perspective. So audience cross-device sort of has to be the future from your perspective. So, but will Xaxis ever be a mobile company? I'm afraid of saying anything at this point. I screwed up the branding once.
Well, yeah, I mean, Xaxis is a programmatic media company, which includes all devices. And I agree with Paul. As I said, there's the industry is $8.5 billion in the U.S. It's about $1.5 billion in the U.K. and smaller in our other markets. But and that's small. $8.5 billion is small relative to display or video in the U.S. So obviously we need to go where advertisers want us to go, and for me, that's using mobile in an intelligent way as probably over time the primary channel through which we engage audiences. And so I expect mobile to grow while the PC or online, traditional online, diminishes.
Got it. All right. You can ask questions. There's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
There's one up there.
We have one up there? Better eyes.
Yeah,
Mike.
hi,
Go
Linda
ahead.
Gridley. I have a question for Paul, actually. All this mobile stuff is really great, and I'm a believer in it. Love the JumpTap acquisition. I might be the only one out there that did. I'm just curious in terms of why do you think your stock behaved the way it did, and why do you think people didn't understand that deal better? Because after all, I think JumpTap also had about 45 patents in mobile, so it seems like it makes you, the clear leader in that regard. I'm just curious.
Yeah. So, it's difficult for me to comment publicly on the stock price. I think, what I can say more generally is when you acquire a company for stock and it's 22% of your, 22.5% of new shares that you're issuing, you would expect that the stock would decline as people anticipate taking that dilution. But again, that's just general. I'm not commenting specifically on the stock. And then the other thing is, what I'll say is, I think that Michael talked about, kind of the journey to an exit of a startup. And JumpTap is a company that's been around 8 years. It started as a mobile search company. It made a couple of different pivots. They were key pivots. And after those pivots, they let go of most of their engineering team and reformed an engineering team in the United States when it was offshore. And I think by the time they did that, I think overall in the market was a little bit fatigued with the JumpTap brand. While what actually was happening was JumpTap was building substantial technology and real prowess in programmatic, and people didn't really give them credit for that. And so, I think the market will look back on this deal as an incredible deal for Millennial, also for JumpTap, but also for the consolidation of a tech stack for mobile and cross-device in one place. Because if you look at who our primary competitor is, which is Google, I think you see what Google's moves were. Invite on the demand side, similar to JumpTap for us. DoubleClick on the exchange side, similar to our partnership with AppNexus here and the launch of the MMX. And of course, Millennial has always been incredibly strong in the supply side as our tools are so broadly used by developers. We shipped over $100 million to developers last year in the app ecosystem. And so again, I think as the deal closes and as we go forward, I think the market's going to be incredibly excited about this deal because of the complementary nature of what each brings to the table.
Yeah. And I wasn't kidding when I said that I think this is the biggest deal in mobile of the year, regardless of immediate dollar value. 5 years from now, we're going to look back and say, this was that platform consolidation. Maybe our deal was a bigger deal, I'm not sure. But one of these deals, certainly the biggest deal. Time for one more question. Can't see, go ahead.
So I work directly with the advertisers, and I think one of the tipping points for digital advertising in advertisers' mind was it was creative, was the ability for creative to be more representative of the brand, and specifically video has been a huge tipping point as well. What do you think will be that kind of thing that pushes advertisers towards mobile, towards the phones versus tablets? Because obviously there's a lot more opportunity for that on tablet than there is on phone.
Yeah.
So, I think it's the ability to identify users across devices that will push creativity. Because I think what's happened in mobile, and Paul said 60% of his business is brand advertisers, but I would guess that those brand advertisers are still measuring success based on really bad metrics like clicks. For us, I think that the creative will get better because now we can actually understand who's looking at their device and what they're interested in. So that connectivity of the entire user experience will allow us to put better, more relevant content in front of users and make it a better experience.
I think from my perspective, I totally agree. We've had an investment in a thing that we call the relevance graph, which is our understanding of location and what the insights are based on audience, and then selling those audiences based on the relevance graph to advertisers. And I think that's it. I think that when there's a little bit of a shift from, okay, click is the metric, to how much of my campaign ran actually in front of my audience, And again, I think one of the insights we found is that location is real behavioral targeting. Behavioral targeting on the PC is browsing behavior targeting. That's different. And shopping behavior targeting. That's very different than there's a device that's in a public park between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. that skews fantastically more towards moms of toddlers than if you were to buy Real Housewives of New Jersey on Bravo. And so, again, we think this is really, really powerful stuff, particularly the insights that can be derived from location. And again, bringing those audiences together, I think, is what drives the creativity and the mindset of how much of this is running against my audience, is really, really key.
Yeah, and this is so exciting. And I think we could probably spend the whole day sitting here learning from you. But one final tip for everyone in the audience. Michael said this is an inevitability. Everyone here has to figure out how to take their business into mobile. One tip for how to do it.
I guess the one tip would be call Xaxis. We can help. No, so my tip would be understand your user and how they're engaging with your brand before you go headlong into mobile, because mobile should be a component of that, not an end in and of itself.
Many years ago, in around 2006, and I don't think there are many brands that are out there like this today. We started the company in 2006. We got our first 2 advertisers on board. They were Paramount and EA. And our third advertiser came aboard, and it was DiGiorno Pizza. It was a campaign for DiGiorno Pizza. And we were about to run the campaign, and we figured out not only, had an agency bought this campaign from us and were expecting it to run, but they had nowhere for it to go. They hadn't invested in the experience. And so, my one tip for getting into it is invest in the experience. Understand how mobile is different than online. People will read things online. People need to use things in mobile. It's the reason why apps are so successful, is it's not just content and not just messaging, but it's messaging and content plus utility. Look no further than things like Uber and many, many other things that utilize the tools and functionalities about mobile. And I think sometimes that insight is lost on advertisers as they're building out. They've really got to think about how is this going to be useful to a consumer, because anywhere where you're marrying utility and content on mobile, there's a real pop to it.
I think that's good advice for all of us, and everything we do is make it work for the consumer. Good things will happen. All right, Brian, Paul, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.